Sure, you can go, Chris.
Okay, so we are here with Chris Fay and Beth Maloney and Randy Nathan and Monica Livingston. And I'm Kelly, for those of you that don't know me. And we're going to be doing a little bit of background on these Triple Impact Competitor Ecomedia Chevy workshops. So I invited Chris and Beth to give us a little bit of background for all of the trainers that are watching the recording of this, so that we all are on the same page and we know what's going on. So Chris, it's all you.
Yeah, I know. And thank you for doing this, Kelly. And thank you for the trainers who have signed up to be a part of Team Chevy. But we're going to be delivering about 17 to 20 workshops in communities across New England. And these are going to be high energy, high impact workshops dedicated mostly to high school students as well as some middle school students. The important thing is, prior to that workshop, knowing exactly the format by which we're doing it, because there are a couple that may not be of the two 55-minute varieties. But we know in that short amount of time that we want to make sure we hit upon several key principles and several key things that we're going to discuss with Kelly today and highlight them. But this is this grant came about through the Chevy dealers of New England, and we want to make sure that we're providing them with materials beforehand. There's going to be a post-workshop follow-up, including a survey that our trainer is going to help conduct. All of the students there will be receiving a book, so they'll have the Elevating Your Game book there. And we use this as an opportunity to not only give them a great opportunity, a great workshop, but hopefully build a long-time partnership with that respective school.
Awesome. Thank you. Beth, did you have anything to add to that?
Unmute. Yeah, just real quick, just to pick up on what Chris is saying, and we talked to Kelly about this a little before, so she may talk about it in the wrap up. As kids are entering, we are going to hand them a book. They're also going to get what we're calling a bookmark, which looks like this, and it has some special graphics that we developed to really kind of make it a little bit edgy and really to promote it. So we're using the sports teach, character, and leadership as sort of our theme. And then we're really trying to get kids to focus in on the self-evaluation. I think my graphic designer called it a checklist. So sometimes it's called that, but it's really a self-evaluation, which is like page 7 in the Elevating Your Game book. So they're going to walk in, they're going to get a book, going to have a bookmark in it. It's going to have a survey with literally 3 questions, which just reminds me, Chris, that I need to get that finalized and ready for Framingham. And they'll get a pen so that we're not like running around at the end doing it. And then Chris or I or somebody else, they'll be at all of these, we hope, or almost all of these, we hope to have a second person so that the trainer is not having to do their presentation and collect the surveys and all of that. So we're really going to try to support you in that, so that that's not your primary concern. And I think that's it. I think, we're hoping that by bringing in Team Chevy, that some of our newer trainers will really get some ideas and really get to experience the different styles that all of you bring, which we're excited about because you guys were hand selected for this special assignment. So, and we're also hoping that other, I say it's definitely through the Chevy dealers of New England, as that's the advertiser, but it was also through a relationship with CBS. And we're really trying to support other chapters in doing something similar with the great funding that we got here. So hopefully this will just be Team Chevy round 1.
And we don't all get free cars out of this?
No free cars. But if that, if that becomes an option, I will put you first on the list, Kelly.
Please, thanks. That'd be great. All right. Just another question about formats. So these are 55-minute back-to-back Making Teammates Better workshop focusing on leadership. And then the next one is going to be an assembly style. So I double checked with Chris and Beth, and they're pretty sure on this, I think, that we're going to have a select group of leaders from each school. Or Chris, if you want to talk about this, a select group of leaders that are going to be meeting first, hand-chosen captains, upperclassmen, I'm assuming, for a smaller group, the first Making Teammates Better, focusing on leadership. So I'm assuming between 20 and 25 kids. And then directly following that is going to be a workshop for the greater athletic community in the school. And I'm assuming they're going to be, within 10, 15 minutes apart. So it's back to back. Is that correct?
Correct. And this is for all the trainers that are doing this to really pay attention to the EMS notes. Okay, and check EMS and schedule the call with the appropriate person 3 to 5 days prior to the workshop, because While our intention was to do 2 55-minute workshops, that can vary because, as you know, their schedules and their formats and and what they can do isn't universal across the board. So making sure and I will put in as many notes as possible to make sure everyone's as prepared as possible.
Okay, great. So when you open up that workshop information sheet, look down at the bottom under the notes, and that's going to have specific notes. And then also make sure you do the phone call. The one other practice that I've gotten into is the 3 to 5 day phone call. I usually make it the week ahead of time phone call. Yeah. And then every single workshop information sheet now has an email for the person. So whether I get a hold of them or not, I make the phone call and ask them questions about their workshop, which all of us trainers know how to do. And then if I leave a message or not, I always follow up with an email. So they have my email address so that they can do, and I'm sure Randy does that as well, so that they can call me at a time that works for them. And I might say on the message, I just tried to give you a call. I left you a voicemail. Please let me know a time to get a hold of you. And that way, if it takes a day or so for it to get back, you still have a few days cushion. So please don't wait until that day 3 ahead of time to make that phone call, because for these workshops, especially because they're customized like this, you might need to do some adjustments to the PowerPoint, the workshop, the layout. So make sure you have enough time. All right. Yes, Randy.
So I just went out to the drive. And right now he's just right.
It says what? It says what?
We sound like
I can't hear you. You sounded better before. Now I can't hear you. Go ahead. Say it again.
So I just went online to the New England Chevy shared file.
Yes.
Right now you have the 2 PowerPoints.
Yes.
If I heard you correctly, there's going to be some kind of almost like checklist item worksheet for us to follow that will also be posted there, correct?
The checklist that Beth was talking about is going to be given to the athletes, and it's very similar to the.
You mentioned something about contacting beforehand and calling the week before, and that. Yeah. So there's no kind of worksheet like we get that remember the whatever sheet that is that was
I like the idea. It sounds like we should do that. Happy to put one in.
We had this thing that you're supposed to follow.
Yes.
So I got a sense maybe like some kind of special checklist that we wanted to do for New England.
I don't think it's any different than a normal workshop than you check in normally for a regular workshop. There's nothing extra special. The only things that are special is what Beth said about the participants receiving a pen, receiving the bookmark.
That's fine. And then EMS usually gives us a 3-day notice. Can we have EMS then do us a week notice?
We can't change that. We'd have to change it for the whole country. I've bugged about that before.
All right.
It's set on a 3-day thing. So, but I mean, most of us know the workshop is coming. So if you know it's coming and you can get that information out a week ahead of time, that would be great.
No problem. Okay.
All right.
Apologies for being late, team. It's Joe, and I was on another call. Imagine that. Hey, guys.
This is so exciting. All right. So, Joe, we were just giving a little background about the workshops. We're going to jump right in, and I'm facilitating this training here. So I'm so excited that Monica and Joe and Chris and Randy and even Beth that you're here, because I have some ideas to throw out there, but I think the more ideas you have, the better. Before we jump into this workshop, as Beth said, all the trainers involved in Team Chevy, which I love, were hand-selected for a reason, because you guys obviously show the passion. You have what it takes to run a very engaging, interactive, dynamic workshop, and they're all for high school kids. So we know that that's what the high school kids need, or you're going to put them to sleep. We want this workshop to have a big impact, and impact is going to be measured by the kids saying, will you be using this information? What did you like about this workshop? Chevy or these third-party workshops want to know that their money's going to good use. So we want to make sure it's having an impact. So absolutely keeping the kids engaged, involved. We also want them to learn something and take something with them. And in order to change a behavior or keep a behavior with them, we want to make sure that they are getting involved and they are feeling connected to it as well. So although energizing entertainment activity is important, we want to keep it simple enough that they're going to get something to take home. So a lot of the slides in here, I'm going to be giving you my take on it. You guys can also add things in as well. You guys, a lot of you have heard me say this before. I am the absolute opposite of a click and vomit. If you can have slides going in the background that are magically turning as you're magically talking and engaging the people, that's even better. I hate the turn and click and read. I'm not that kind of a person, but sometimes it does cause for you to do that. So if there's a slide up and it has page numbers, a lot of times I assume that they're reading it, and I might not hit every single bullet point on it because they don't need me to regurgitate it and read it back to them. So that's just kind of my format, my idea. We're going to start with the Making Teammates Better because it's a smaller group. So again, I'm going to be asking you guys questions as we go throughout this, but I'm going to screen share now so that you guys can see it. Some of the videos are slightly different, so I am going to play those so that you can see what they look like. Any questions before I jump in?
Kelly, I was just going to say two things, just so I always think it helps to know what you're being tested on. So the kids, the questions are going to be asked are, number one, rate the content from poor to excellent. And number two, do you intend to use the workshop ideas? So those are the two questions they're going to be asked, other than their name and what school they go to. And then we will pick the most interactive group sort of, and we'll do 3 focus groups after the fact. But just so you know, you're being tested on the content, poor to excellent, and kids' willingness to say that they intend to use the workshop ideas. And I will let you know that we have put our hand on the scale because Mark in Tampa tells me that he is always 90+% on both of those questions. So those are the questions we're reporting back to Ecomedia and Chevy on, just so you know.
That's great. And I like the simplicity of it too. I think that's always better.
Yeah.
So as I'm talking, is this PowerPoint flipping in and out for you, or is it steadily on?
On.
Okay. All right. If it's not, let me know. All right. So this is the cool edgy graphic that Beth was talking about. I think there's going to be flags and banners, all of this same red and black and gold color. Totally clashes with the blue and gold and red of our regular workshop, but that's neither here nor there. You just have to deal with it, you anal retentive people, but that's okay. So I like the impact. The impact is huge, and that's great. So
don't worry, everybody. She's talking to me. That wasn't even for you. That's all me.
Yeah, that's for Joe.
We're trying to make it appeal to high school kids.
Exactly. Edgy high school kids that like colors like this. So Beth and Chris, I'm assuming that we're going to be introduced the same as you would for a normal workshop. So I think it's cool to have this up first, sports teach character and leadership. This is the basis for the first Making Teammates Better workshop with the smaller group. So keep that in mind right now. We're talking to a smaller group of hand-selected leaders. So this is the plug. The workshop is Making Teammates Better. We're going to focus on leadership. Beth asked me to put in some of the sponsors. It's always great to have the sponsorship in here. So Beth, do you just want to run down real quick? You don't have to obviously tell a story about them all, but just so we know what all the symbols are.
Oh, sure. Boston Bruins, Boston Celtics. The big D is Dartmouth, Deloitte. Fenway Sports Management is Fenway. That's our connection to the Red Sox. So we don't technically have the Red Sox, but essentially we do. You can kind of elide them. And Fidelity, everyone around here will know. Harvard, everyone will know. New Balance, WBZ, and the last one's Yale. So they all support us in various ways.
Okay. Did anybody else lose audio on Beth on that, or was that just me?
Oh.
I heard.
Oh, you heard him. Good. Okay, just me. Okay, so thanks. So here's our sponsors. It's always good for the kids to see that we're supported by groups that they're familiar with, especially in the New England area. So then we're going to jump right in. This is your intro. So again, we've hand selected you guys because you have strong intros, the way that you bring kids into a workshop. And I think I've seen Joe and Randy, and I've never seen Chris Fay do an intro actually, but, and Monica, we want you to use your own style. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to open up a workshop, but, you know, Randy, what's something that you do at the very beginning of every workshop just to get the kids fired up?
My intro music is DJ Khalid. Everybody wins. Your hands go up, down, and then I do a fake ludicrous jam.
Thanks. Monica, what do you do to get kids fired up before athlete workshops?
I do nothing that cool. Right? So it just depends. I read the audience, you know, do my homework before. Sometimes I may open with the women's tackle football thing. I might do a call and response. It depends on the group. And after that, from Randy, I'm not giving him all my secrets. So.
But you'll tell me offline, right?
Oh, you know I got you.
I'm going to write my own rap song just to piss Randy off.
That's what I was
See, you practice that. You write your own. You practice that in Chicago first.
No, I do my own stuff, man. I'm good.
Joe does his Hamilton rap. We've seen him do that.
No, that's a myth. That never happened. I thought we agreed on that.
All right. One of the things that I like to do, this is just me. Again, I'm going to share what I do. If you guys want to jump in with what you do. I'm a big, here's the big vision that PCA is in the business of developing better athletes, more importantly, better people. You're all athletes. Thank you so much for coming. I do this with the big group. This is my call response. When I say better athletes, you yell back better people. We practice it a couple times. Sometimes I'll do one team against another if I have a big group. This is a small group, so I'm not going to do it for making teammates better. I'll get to it with the athletes, but just because I said it, I'm going to explain it. If I have the soccer team, field hockey team, volleyball team in a room of 300, I'll say, okay, I'm going to yell and I want the field hockey team to respond. And I'll say better athletes. And the field hockey team stands up and says better people. And, you really hype it up. Like the football players are like better people and they're really lame. And then you say, come on, you guys can do better than that. Get them all fired up. So whatever you can do to get the room fired up here. We're focusing with this smaller group on, excuse me, finding their leadership role.
Kelly, sorry to interrupt you. Joking aside, for me, it's always really important for me, especially with the athletes, to almost really start with something where they're interacting. So I usually do some sort of, talk to somebody else and talk about what kind of teammate you are, what kind of leader you are, something that's going to jar them and surprise them a little bit. But I want them established that we're not going to sit down and listen throughout this whole thing.
Yeah.
So I want to establish that really early, like almost immediately, more and more increasingly immediately, just to get them in that mode.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yep, I like that.
One thing I've done is always before a workshop is research, who played the night before. So girls basketball team won, and if I'm in a big group, where the girl basketball players stand up and, congratulations on your big win against, Wellesley. And then that just shows them that one, that winning is important. We do value winning, but two, it shows them that we know a little bit about their school.
Yeah, absolutely. And know the mascot right away. That's always a big thing. Let's cheer for the Wildcats. Wildcat cheer. Find out what their cheer is. If they do have a cheer that they already use, that's really helpful as well. So anything we can do to make the kids know that we've done our homework on them, that's huge. So thank you. So the way that we have this laid out is so that we're talking first about leadership. And one of the first quotes we have is from Phil Jackson. How do you guys like to do a quote with athletes?
I'd like to do it. I have them read it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I read the black. I have them read the blue.
Yep. Any way you can do that, be careful cold calling a high school kid. A lot of them might not even be able to read or might not speak English. So be really careful about that. You can ask for a volunteer. You can ask for them to read it in chorus. This is a short one. Strength of the team is in each member. The strength of each member is in the team. Talking to them a little bit about why they're here. It's great. I think it's awesome when you have a hand-selected group of kids to talk about why they were chosen. And, why do you ask them? Why do you think you were chosen to be here? What qualities do you possess already? Today, we're going to talk about those qualities and how you can bring that to your team. So we're jumping in right away. Joe, this is the interactive part. And this is totally ripped off and stolen from Randy Nathan because I really like the way he did this at a workshop. So Randy, why don't you explain how you do this?
So at the very beginning, I have them, and I guess I usually have note cards as well, but since I have books, I have them write down this question or the statement, I'm a leader because. I don't have them answer it right then. I just ask them to write it down. So then when I'm finished at the end of the workshop, I circle back around, then have them go back and answer why I'm a leader. So they've taken the context, and they each stand up and share I'm a leader because to the rest of the group.
Love it. Love it. And I do have this question at the end of the workshop as well, if you didn't get a chance to look through it. The greatest thing that they're being, as Beth said, they're handed a pen and they have the book, Elevating Your Game. The book, Elevating Your Game, has a whole blank front cover. It's got a whole blank back cover. And it's got the title page that has a lot of space around the edges. So I tell the kids, this is not a workbook per se, but there's a lot of spaces to take notes on there. One of the things some of the trainers do, especially with a smaller group, as Randy said, he provides note cards, index cards for the kids. I'll have sticky notes a lot of times. I always keep sticky notes in my bag, have a stack of sticky notes out, put one on the front of the book. So you can use those for different things to get the athletes involved as well. Okay, so jumping right in, we chose to put this video first of Brandon because we want the kids to think about what they just wrote down. They just wrote down, I'm a leader because. And Randy said he doesn't like to share right out loud right at first. But, you might want to get a couple kids. You might want to have them share with a partner. Turn to somebody in front of or behind you. High five somebody next to you. Come up with a high five handshake with the person next to you. You got 30 seconds, go. And they'll come up with some funky high five. It gets them energized, talking, just having a little bit of fun. But again, bringing them into, you all have this vision of why you're a leader. You all have different gifts and strengths and abilities. So what I'd love you to hear from is a PCA staff member, Brandon Whiting, who played for the 49ers and the Eagles. And it's great because these are in New England. So I know you guys hate the Eagles, but still it's fun to have Brandon here.
Yeah, make some booze. Don't take it the wrong way. If they
he's a real deal. I think he's great.
Yeah.
You know, I do wonder, Kelly, should we grab a little clip of Scott at some point and say former starting quarterback of the Patriots?
You could.
For this?
Yeah, you could do that.
I mean, let me give him a shout today and see if there's a way to do that. At least I know that there's that whole Patriots loyalty thing there, and maybe that's helpful. I don't know.
Yeah, there is. And, you know, as I said, I wasn't even thinking about the apathy that New England has for the Eagles, but it's nice to hear this video because Brandon does mention specific players on his team and the role that they play. So in a bigger, more mature than the high school kids way to set up this video so that they're not booing Brandon, because the message of this video is awesome. So have, let me see if you guys
I think it's really important.
Can you guys hear that?
Coaches and the athletes themselves to realize that there are different types of leaders on a team, and that a lot of times when we try to force a leader just because they're a star player into a specific role or a specific type of leadership, it doesn't always fit. And the best leaders maximize on, you know, their strengths. And, you know, on the Eagles, we had different types of leaders. We had emotional leaders and vocal leaders like Brian Dawkins and Jeremiah Trotter, who were the guys that got everybody ready to go and, you know, amped up for the game. And then we had, you know, other leaders like Troy Vincent, who were more kind of teacher, mentor leaders who, you know, took young players aside and showed them, hey, this is the way that you need to do things if you want to improve your game. You know, we had other types of leaders on the team like Donovan McNabb, who, you know, kind of injected humor into the game and made sure that everybody was having fun and that it was an enjoyable experience. And we had people, you know, and it doesn't always have to be the star player. You know, there can be spiritual leaders. You know, Chad Lewis was a tight end of ours. You know, was a very spiritual guy who, you know, helped out on that side of the game. And it's really important for great teams to have all types of leaders. So when coaches are looking for leaders, look for those type of things in their players and encourage them to talk to players on the team about them and strengthen the team in those things that they're really good at.
So I think, you know, again, most of the videos we have in here are short. I think because this is the first one and it's, you know, basically defining leadership style, I'm okay with it being a little bit longer.
Well, I think it's really important
Okay, so we want these kids to understand that they have huge potential to be leaders. And a lot of these kids, it might be the first time that they're actually raised up as leaders. Some kids, when they are handpicked for these workshops, they're like shocked, like, hey, why are you guys here? And some of them are like, I don't know why I'm here. My coach picked me. So to really give them the confidence to understand why they were picked, that's what this question's all about. So the first one is, I want them to think first, what is one of your greatest strengths? And again, it's coming off of that video where Brandon talked about everybody's got different strengths. Everyone's got different leadership styles. So I want the kids to think about what's one of their greatest strengths. And then the second question is, what are some of the challenges that you face as a leader on your team? So we've got, this is another interactive moment. Remember, this is the smaller group. So I have a timer set. If you guys feel comfortable using the timer, that's great. If you click it, it's going to automatically count down from 2 minutes. When it gets to the end, it's going to have it's actually a school bell that rings. If you guys are comfortable using that, great. If you have a better way to have kids talking and bringing them back, use your own style, whatever you like to do. But I find this to be really helpful. Magically, the kids stop talking when the buzzer goes off and you don't have to bring them back and say, whoa, everybody stop. It's time for me to get started again. So just going back real quick to these questions, let's hear some ideas how to get a smaller group of 25 kids grouped up and talking. Monica, Joe, Randy, Chris, how are you going to do it?
I use a ball.
Okay, tell me about it.
I have a little squishy yellow ball.
Yep.
So no one can get hurt.
Okay, so you're going to have them, you're just going to toss a ball around and have them answer it out loud?
That's kind of, in some cases, it goes back and forth to each other, give them a sideline partner, and then as a group conclusion, I use this ball. Okay.
That's definitely one option. What's another way if you want them to get in like small groups or pairs?
I just asked them to break up in the, it doesn't have to be complicated. I asked them to break up in groups of 2 or 3 people that they don't normally talk to or that they haven't seen yet today, or, you know, something like that, and get them to talk to each other. And then the next time I do something, I ask them not to do it with the person that they just finished doing, so that we have variety in the groups when we do, you know, the small groups.
Yep.
The other, I also pass out a deck of cards. And so I have them find, if they have a black number, they find some with a red number or their same number, and I use that for a little bit too.
Man, Randy, I gotta come to you, man. You got like magic tricks and a whole bunch of stuff going on in your work.
Oh my God, he's terrifying. I even like Randy. He bugs me.
No, you've got cards, Joe. You got cards.
Yeah, well, I stole this from Abby Burbank, which is a great idea that she stole from somebody else. Those spotted cards. It's a product you can buy either on Amazon or a toy store, where it's I think basically for 7-year-olds, where they have images on the cards where kids can match images to match up. And the secret is that there's always a matching image. You have some matching image, it's some weird math to it, but so they can always match and rematch. You know, it gets dodgy when there are too many kids.
I got Post-it notes.
Yeah. And those spotted cards that Joe's talking about, they actually have sports versions of them too, which are pretty cool. Randy has one on his forehead. Look at that.
Nice.
We're all about Frozen.
What did you say about 7-year-olds?
Yeah, mine have those too. I have like princesses and Frozen and crap. It goes over great.
Jobkins and Frozen.
Yes.
Yeah.
My nephew actually has baseball ones that have sporting things on them, which I thought was super cool. I didn't know Spotted made that. So that might be a cool thing too. But just know that every card
every other card. He's actually in the middle of a drinking game right now, but he's doing it. It's later out there.
Those ones. All right. So we digress. Let's get back to the topic here. So you have them talking in a certain way. Personally, I like to give them qualifiers because I find if you ask kids to find somebody they don't know, they'll find their best friend no matter what. So I like to say, find somebody that's not on your team, find somebody that's not in your grade, find somebody that has different eye color. The eye color one I always love because it makes them get like 5 inches away from each other and stare into each other's eyes, which is pretty funny. So I also always do a lost and found. If it's in a group, I always tell them like lost and found's up here. If you didn't find a partner, come up. And then I take the people that didn't find a partner and make them a group. Just a little trick that works. All right. So give them time to discuss. They're going to have 2 minutes on the clock. They're talking about their greatest strengths, and then they're talking about challenges. So again, at the end of the 2 minutes, you've got them thinking already about their gifts and then their challenges as a leader on their team. So if you are so inclined to have a whiteboard, a chart paper, something like that, where you want to write some of these down, if you gave the kids a sticky note and you want them to write down a challenge that they have on their team and then come up and stick them on a board somewhere, just so that they're visible. Remember, this is a smaller group, so you really want to hit their needs. So some way for them to share these out loud, whether it's tossing a ball around, sticking them up on a board. We want these to be verbalized so that everybody's on the same page. Another great thing to do, again, stolen, ripped off from I don't know who, but one thing that I always do too is if you agree with the challenge, if somebody says, my greatest challenge is getting everybody to be motivated to play or getting everybody to practice on time. If that's also your challenge, clap once to agree. So either do clap once or snap to agree, just to get the whole group engaged. And so the person that volunteered says, yeah, okay, yeah, you guys got my back. You have the same issues that I do. Questions on that?
No, and I know it probably comes up later in this format, but I also find I do sometimes flip those to, I like it when my teammate blank and that kind of thing. I know or in this situation, or one of the things that's hard for me is they're answering differently when it's that format sometimes.
Yep. That is going to come up later, Joe. Thanks. All right. So the first thing we're doing is we're going to have them think as they watch this video. I'm just going to preview. This is the World Cup penalty kick. I made it shorter just to let you know. I edited the video so it doesn't have the German player missing the goal at the end of it because I never liked that anyway.
Oh, we love that part. We love that part.
You want to keep that in? Go for it.
Randy wants to see Germans fail.
The greatest job the world misses it. What that's called, that's called pure poetry right there.
Karma. Yeah, but I think it distracted a little bit from the point. You can put it back in, Randy, if you want. But I want them to think about it first. This is the teacher and me. I want them to think about what they're watching. How would you handle this situation as a teammate? Yeah. How would you want to be treated if you were Julie Johnston? Okay. Ertz, I'd like to say, but we're going to keep it Julie Johnston for now. All right, so set it up for them. World Cup penalty shot. Here's the video. Short.
In the second half after U.S. defender Julie Johnson pulled down a German forward in the box, resulting in a penalty kick for Germany.
So it stops there, okay? Stops on the purpose. Here's the scene. If you need to set it up for them again, how would you handle the situation? How would you like to be treated?
So real quick, Kelly, I guess in all seriousness, doesn't it also go to the fact that the only thing that matters is the next play and everything is out in your control? And sometimes what could be seen as a catastrophic mistake is just part of the game. Can that also be used in that same sense in terms of the teammates?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the things, Randy, that we're having them. The point of the video is to just get them thinking about one of the teammates screwed up. The idea I think when it goes into that Germany lost the kick, and yeah, that's the big picture. That is like, yeah, it's part of the game. You know, some things work. That gets into a bigger.
Or as I think about it, why not discuss both the so-called mistakes from both angles on players? Use them both. One was a penalty. One is a missed kick shot.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that pose a great opportunity to talk about how teammates treat each other in terms of situation, in terms you do something wrong and make a mistake, another situation where it's not so much a mistake, but you somehow get beat?
Yeah, it does.
About that? Just curious.
Yeah, but I think the other thing that we're thinking about here is we've got 55 minutes and we want to just try to keep focus. But yes, I agree. I think it's a great opportunity to do both.
Right.
So again, they're reflecting, they're thinking, how do they want to be treated? The two approaches that were actually taken were two different quotes from different teammates. We've got Carly Lloyd giving her advice, and we've got Becky Sauerbrunn giving her advice. And I think, you know, for a group like this, having someone read the quote and, you know, which approach would work for you? Maybe neither of these would. Maybe there's a better approach. I'm not going to tell you how to facilitate this part of the conversation, but you get the point of having them think about how would you want your teammates to support you? And that has a lot to do with your style and what works for you, and also knowing your teammates well. All of these athletes, we're assuming, are also very comfortable with the PCA principles already. So this is a deeper dive, and we're getting into how to make the people around you better. So again, this is what extends the activity. Yeah, supporting teammates after mistakes is great. What else can you do as a teammate to fill their emotional tanks? So filling the emotional tanks leads into the next principle. Again, this is a lot of words on a slide. If you look at all these words, okay, if you sit there and click through every one of these words, the kids are going to lose you. So I like to just put them up. Let me see. I start with this. Athletes with an empty tank, athletes with a full tank. There's a lot of ways that you can illustrate this to these players. You can have them, you know, I've had two players, especially if it's an auditorium or a classroom, come to the front. You're doing a drill with soccer. You're going to run from this end of the auditorium or this end of the room to the other. You have an empty tank. You have a full tank. Show me how you're going to do it. And they race, and it's actually hilarious because you've got somebody like with their head down and they're moping and they're walking slow, and the other person's like zipping through the cones because they have a full tank. So again, a visual for kids is more important. A visual role play activity or something to get them up or moving, or this side of the room, I want you to drain my tank. This side of the room, I want you to fill my tank, you know, on their feet, screaming, cheering, cursing you out, whatever you do, that's going to make an impact much more than going, athletes with an empty tank are pessimistic. They give up more easily. And I don't even read these to the kids. I put them up there on the screen for the visual people, but I'm not going to read them. They know just by the activity that we just did. So again, what drains the tank and what fills the tank? After you've had them already show you what drains the tank and what fills the tank, either they're yelling and screaming or they're, you know, pumping you up, or whatever activity you decide to do to illustrate the filling emotional tank principle, probably similar that you would do to a regular coach workshop even. Putting these up here is, again, it's the reason that they're set up the way they are, sorry to keep going back and forth, is that society and most of us would use criticism. That's going to drain a tank. What's the opposite of that? Well, to fill someone's tank, you're going to give them truthful, specific praise. So again, these are, you know, sarcasm. I know, especially in New England, sarcasm is a second language, like it is in Philadelphia as well. Talk to the kids about sarcasm. What's kind of a sarcastic response? How could you appreciate someone? So use these more as questions rather than telling. Anytime you ask rather than tell, you're going to get a lot more. I stop on nonverbals. That's one of the areas that I stop on, because you can do it with the entire room all at once. Show me nonverbally how you would drain a tank. Show me nonverbally how you would fill a tank. It's something, and the kids get into it. They laugh. These are leaders. These are captains. So they're,
you know, sorry to interrupt. Ken Harkenrider gave me a wonderful thing he does for this. He might have taken it from one of y'all, where he'll put something up. He'll bring a kid down, and their back is to the screen, and he'll have the other kids non-verbally try to get them to do what's on the screen, like do a push-up, do a jumping jack, without showing them the actual thing, just by cheering one way or the other, and by their attitude toward what they're doing. And it's a fun way to activate that, actually.
Yeah, and I think that's a great one. And the jumping jack always works great. The other one is go back and high five somebody on your team. That's always a fun one too, that people have to, like, if they're in the front of the room, and what the athlete has to do is walk, like go to high five someone else on your team, and to get them to cheer for them as they start to move is really cool. With that activity, Joe, too, we've always done, instead of filling and draining, you cheer or you stay quiet. Or, you know, you can, because I've done it before where you fill and drain, and then every time the person moves, it's like, yeah, ooh, yeah, ooh, oh, and the kid's like more confused. To make it a quick activity, this is only about filling. So we're not going to do any criticism at all. We're just going to fill their tank if they're doing it right. And you want them to do more of, you know, if they put their arms up in the air for a jumping jack, you're going to fill and cheer. If they're not, stay quiet. So, but that's a fun one, definitely. All right, so again, getting into this slide can take a long time, but we're assuming that these kids that you're going to be talking to right now are familiar with this. They know that clicks drain the tank. They know that belonging is what all kids have a purpose for. Hazing and positive initiation we're going to get into with the bigger group. So introducing this, remember you're talking to leaders. So we know that, I mean, these kids, it's not news to them that hazing is going to drain the tank, but how many of them as leaders have stood up against hazing and are now putting in some type of a positive initiation on their team? So again, as much time as you want to spend on this, I don't want to say take a free-for-all, but this can be a real big discussion period, but I want you to keep the kids engaged, and I want you to keep them thinking about being leaders on their team. Kabish? Kabish. All right, again, a wordy slide. They have this in their books. So every kid is going to have a book. Have them open up right now. Nose in the book, page 50. All right, we just talked about lots of ways to fill and drain tanks. They all have a pen, they all have a book, which is beautiful. So open up to page 50 and 51. Here's a whole slew. Here's a whole list of exactly what's in the book of tank filling tools. What I want you to do is take a minute, and I just want you to put a star next to the ones that would work for you, because not all of these are going to work for everybody. So I just give them a minute, look in the book. These are good for the readers in the room. Go through, skim it down, and put which ones work for you. And then again, the debrief of that is, you know, not everybody's tank is filled the same way. Some people might like to hear their name. Other people might not. That might not do it for them. Some people might like it if a teammate checks in with them. But again, I really encourage you to not go down each bullet point and just repeat everything on here. Feedback, comments on that from the crowd? Agree, disagree? Okay. All right, I'm going to keep going. Now we're getting into playing a leadership role. These are videos that I have cut in half. Some of you might be familiar with this, but I made these 2 short video clips rather than 1 big long video clip from Brad Stevens. So he's just very briefly talking about the keys to leadership for him. This was actually him speaking to high school athletes up in Boston, which is pretty cool that it's from there. So I'll let you hear that.
I think the best leaders lead by serving others. I don't know if you've heard that phrase before. Maybe you've already talked about it today. I don't know. But I know this, that the people that I enjoy being around the most, I feel like are really invested in me. And that's a pretty selfish way to look at things, but it does make you feel better. It makes you feel like everything you're doing, failure or success, has a purpose, and you can help somebody strive to get to where they want to go. When we look at players to recruit, I used to look at who can make us better because of their presence. We have a young man down there who's an assistant coach for us that played in 2 national championship games in college. He could not dribble, pass, or shoot. Think about that for a second. He played in 2 national, played about 25 to 30 minutes a game. He wasn't a very good ball handler. He couldn't shoot, right? And he struggled to not turn the ball over.
Okay, I'm going to let you know that that wasn't the clip that I thought that was. That was supposed to be cut shorter. So I will fix that. I think I had to reinstall the video, and it did not shorten where I stopped. I was going to stop it way earlier, but we're talking about, it was going to stop after the serving, but I think the key is to serving others. And so talking to the kids about how do you serve as a leader on your team. And this is a concept that is probably really foreign to a lot of kids, because the idea of leadership for a lot of high school kids is being the vocal leader, the boss, telling everybody what to do. So when you get into, again, the debrief of this video, you can ask, how do you serve others on your team as a leader? What can you do? Who do you respect? Think about a leader that you had on your team when you were a freshman. Did you respect them? Yes or no? Did you want to follow them as a leader? I think the hardest part for you as trainers at this workshop is going to be to not spend 2 hours, because there's so much you can talk about here. So you're going to have to pick and choose, and you're going to have to read the crowd and see how they're responding to some of this. But again, this is a quick, easy way, quick quiz. Which are leadership and which are not. I like the thumbs up, thumbs down. Yes, if it is leadership, thumbs up. No, if it's not. You can clap to vote. Clap if it is. Stay silent if it's not. Read through these one at a time. And again, you're going to get, you guys have seen these before. The biggest one that's going to be issues are probably the one that says telling freshmen to carry equipment. That always starts a big like, oh, well, that's what we do. And take a minute. If there's some kids that think, well, yeah, it is. This is a great debate slide. Yeah, that's leadership. That's what we had to do. That's just part of the game. Take a minute, because remember, this is tacked on to the Brad Stevens video that talks about being a servant leadership. If you're serving others, you're a good leader. Yelling at a bunch of freshmen to carry equipment, is that how you serve them? Is that how you make them feel equal? Make them feel
Sorry, I don't want to take more time on this call, but if anybody wants to, I had a lot of trouble with language around that particular one. And I'm going to offer up somebody else's time here. Randy really helped me out with that a ton. So if like me, you have trouble with kind of the right words around that, Randy's got that down hard. So, give him a shout. He's always been really generous with the time. Sorry to offer you up, Randy.
No, anytime, brother. Thanks for thinking of me.
So what do you say, Randy?
In terms of freshmen, the gear,
Mm-hmm.
What I do is I ask everybody first to go thumbs up, thumbs down if you agree, thumbs down. But then I go back to this concept of freshmen carrying the gear. And it seems pretty unnecessary, but it does create a hierarchy on the team, which we're not about in terms of freshmen. Then I often talk about if it is some teams who do that, what ends up happening is at some point, the freshmen are carrying the gear, and one of the junior seniors comes along and then hits the freshman in the arm and says, aha, loser freshman. And then they drop the stuff, and there in itself becomes a hazing situation, but the kids won't say anything. The third thing is it already, by design, it might be a situation where there's a freshman who's a really good, talented kid, and a junior or sophomore or senior is scared for the position. It gives them permission to go after a particular player that might threaten them. And so in a number of different pieces, I kind of talk about those three things. Is that what you were referring to, Joe?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some info for you from Coach Randy. Very helpful. Thank you, Randy.
No, I guess, and the other piece is, one of the things I often do say is to make it on the bigger scale, as I talk about when families go to the beach, and that when everybody goes to the beach, when you're younger, who carried all the stuff to the beach? And they all said, well, my parents. And I said, right. Did they make you carry all the gear? They said, no. I said, but did they give you something small for you to carry as well? They're like, yes. I go, and why do they do that? Because they wanted to stress that we're a family, do everything together. And so that's where I kind of throw that piece in and say that's exactly what this is all about. And I've had this conversation with D1 college programs about freshmen. They've come back to me and they've gone, I think I see it a little differently now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's part of the team culture, and the leaders in the room are the ones that are going to help decide the team culture. Actually,
the other piece is, I'm sorry, Jill got me going. The other thing I ask them by a show of hands, when you were a freshman, how many of you carried the gear? And they all raise their hands. And I said, by a show of hands, here loved being forced to carry the gear. And not one hand goes up. Now that you're in your positions, how many make the freshmen carry the gear? And then they all raise their hand. And then I go, why in the world would you make somebody do something that you hated so much?
Mm-hmm.
That's not logical.
Yeah.
And then when I talk to the administration coach, I go, that's literally how hazing starts.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. My daughter switched to cross country freshman year, and she said, Mom, there's no gear. It's kind of fun. We don't have to carry anything, which I always thought was interesting. All right. So again, small group. I love this question. This is called a value line. question, the quote is, leadership has little to do with talent. Do you agree or disagree? Have them, picture, this is a slide. So this is up on a screen. So the key to this is having them decide where they stand on this. If they completely 100% agree, they're going to go to the right. If they completely disagree, they're going to go to the left. Make sure that you're telling them the same direction as on the slide. I've seen trainers try to use this and they're telling kids the opposite direction of the slide that's facing them. So make sure that's all in the right direction. But again, it's a great way for them to just vote real quick, get actively involved. Yeah, I don't think you have to tape a piece of tape down, but some trainers have done that, or just have them line up in the back of the room so that they can actually see what's going on in the front of the room. And then we've got the Shane Battier. You've all seen this. I'm not going to show it, but the Shane Battier video that talks about leadership having to do with talent. So we can go, I'm just going to skip through that. Sorry, Shane. Okay. Again, kids like quotes. I have kids surprisingly, they always write down, I like the quotes. So being a great leader is about everybody making those around you better. Yeah. And I just take a minute on this to think about, a lot of times kids are in it for themselves. I want to get better. I want to be the best. I want to be recruited. I want to be the superstar. But colleges are really looking for players that can make those around them better. Because and this is something, again, like I find sometimes at workshops when you say a few things, you get the kids to go like, huh, like I never thought about that. Like, wow, if I make the people around me better, we'll actually win more games. And colleges are looking for leadership. And they're not looking for the person that is the ball hog, that is totally the one, taking all the attention. They're looking for the one that's willing to help those around them get better. And in turn, your team's going to do better. So, all right, I'm going to keep going. Scenarios are great. There are a few different choices. If you talk to the athletic director at your school and they have a specific scenario for the leadership and you want to change this around a little bit, you can do that. But I think this is great for the leadership portion of this, because it's talking about how they want to help their team do well, but not all the teammates are on the same page. What do they do? Again, get them in groups, especially for leader groups. I love to have them mix in a group with kids that are not on the same team with them. So if you get one kid from each sport to get together in a small group, I think it's really helpful. They can learn from each other. Any type of way to get them in a group like that, have them share, a few people share, have a spokesperson for the group. I usually say the person whose birthday is closest to today, congratulations, you're the spokesperson. If you don't, and sometimes I've even done in a group of like 5 or 6, I'll say, point to the person that you want to be the spokesperson. And everybody will just point all at the same time. And they usually point to the same person, or 2 people point to the same person. So let them do it. All right. So again, if they have already shared, this is what I do, when they, when they're sharing out loud with this, if they've already shared it, don't repeat it for them. I've had a lot of times when kids that are in leadership positions will say, well, I'll have a talk with them one-on-one. Great. Then when you come to the scenario follow-up slide, you don't have to explain, well, one-on-one conversations, that's a good idea, because the kid just shared it. Give the kid the credit. He came up with a good reason. So tell him. Empathizing. I
would actually go one more than that, Kel. And sometimes I use that as a way of really pumping them up and filling them up. Like, hey, I guess Katie's really got it going on because she had that way before I put it up, and kind of really valued their expertise openly.
You got it. And that's the thing. That's what they want. They want to feel valued. And, any way that you can make them feel like what they're doing as leaders is on the ball, like they're doing exactly what they should be doing. That's awesome. And even if they say it a little bit differently, when you get to this slide, again, don't click and vomit. Just explain to them what this means. Reward what you want to see. Well, what's that look like when you're a cat? How do you reward what you want to see? Who's ever done that? Ask the kids. It's great conversation. All right. Again, quote, the kids think about this. There's no blue or black, but there is going to be conflict. It's not going to be perfect, but a great championship team is the kind that knows how to deal with it effectively. Attack the problem, not the person. This is where there's a couple slides. If you want to hide some of these, you can. But there's another slide, I think, hidden in there that says the failure is not a person. Yes. It's a result you don't like. So again, that's in there. You can unhide that if you want. I just didn't want to have too many at the same time. So feel free to unhide. So thinking of this also, most of the time on high school teams, when there is a problem or a conflict, everybody's quick to play the blame game. So moving that along. This is a video most of you probably have not seen. This is from John Carroll, who was a Double Gold Coach Award winner in 2016. He's also a very, Beth, if you want to just give us the rundown real quick on John Carroll so everybody knows who he is.
He's a PCA trainer. He runs the basketball program at Northfield Mount Hermon's, been there a long time. was actually nominated by Tommy Amaker. He sends more kids to the Ivy League than any other single program, and he has more captains in the Ivy League than any other program. He's been in multiple national prep championship games. He has an outstanding record of success, and this video will tell you why. He's very deep. He's a great guy.
He is. So just to give you some background on him, pump him up a little bit, and here's the video.
One of the examples we use to kind of teach them life lessons about leadership is that we expect all of them to be leaders. We do not necessarily have captains. We don't have the same process every year. I'm not choosing the captains. Some years they do. And the idea is that we want them to lead and feel comfortable leading themselves. And the sweet spot for me when there's a great team, you know, the old adage where a bad team has no leader, a really good team has a coach as a leader, a great team is when the players are the leader.
So that's John Carroll right there. And, you know, again, this is the end of the workshop talking about, you know, how do we have all the kids on the team step up for leadership positions? Randy, your reflection at the end.
Yeah.
How do you wrap this up at the end?
So what I do is I go back to them and I say, let's go back to the very first statement we looked at. The life you do now is go back and answer this question. I'm a leader because, and take into consideration some of the things we discussed today. And I give them about 35, I'll give you about a minute to fill that out. And then the smaller group, I first ask who would like to first volunteer. And I tell them you will share these with your peers.
Perfect. All right. And that's the end of the workshop. So again, this is going to be leading them into knowing that they're going to be having all of their teammates now come together for the next hour and hear what they've heard. And we're going to talk about these three principles: self better, teammates better, and game better. So this is kind of the transition for the leaders. Each situation is going to be different. If you want to skip the resources, because the resources are going to be at the end of the TIC workshop as well. So you can actually just end this workshop right there. And if they have any questions, if there's time left, find out, did we actually address the challenges that you have? Do you feel more equipped to address the challenges on your team?
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to take that as a no. But again, helping these leaders, they have the book, they have the Dev Zone Resource Center. If you have time, show them what that is, show them how to bookmark it on their phone. Yeah. Yep.
I've always found it confusing, especially since these kids have not gone through a full TIC training. Why do we have to include all three parts if all we're doing is focusing on making teammates better? I think doesn't that confuse them?
This is, Randy, you're doing the making teammates better with the leaders, but after this is going to be a TIC assembly with the whole student body. Okay, all right. So you're giving the heads up of what's going to happen next. Okay. So this is the end of the making teammates better workshop. This is the segue into what we're going to be talking to them. So in a few minutes, so it happens afterwards, right? Yes. All right, gotcha. Yeah. I'm assuming that's always the case, Beth. It's not going to be like there's not a reason that it would be switched to having the assembly one first. Yeah, to my knowledge, Chris, I think they're all scheduled that way, and it's if they're flipped, we'll let you know. But that's how we set it up. I know content-wise, it would be helpful to give the baseline TIC and then the leadership group. But our thought was that leadership group will help you. I think the one thing you ask them to do at the end of their workshop is to really put it into practice and help make their teammates better, like to get everyone to stay focused and engaged. You want them to kind of be your leaders in the audience at the bigger, especially for the assembly style workshop. So then the follow-up, they're going to stay. Does that mean you have to change your teammates better conversation? Because basically it's going to be a repeat of what you just did. Or you know what I'm saying? It'll duplicate for those that already heard it. Won't it? Well, the next workshop is going to be the TIC assembly workshop, and it's going to be shortened. It's an hour. So you're not diving deeply. You are talking about making teammates better. So it'll be the same. It'll be the same slides, the same concept. It's just a shortened version. It'll be a repeat for the leaders. It'll be reinforcement, not repeat, reinforcement, because they need to hear it in front of all their people too. No, I understand that, but it'll be the same. It'll be the same bit, but just shorter.
Can I offer a possibility about that and just ask particularly Beth's input on this? What if I think what we're trying to do here is framing that first workshop for leaders as saying, hey, when we say some of these concepts in less depth with the rest of your team, you know, it's your opportunity now to learn it more deeply now and be a leader. And we're giving you this workshop so that after that workshop, it has lasting impact. So if we frame it as the reason for them to be there is that some of these concepts are going to be explained with your team, you know, it gives them a role, I think, which makes it different than anybody feeling like, hey, I'm seeing this again.
No, so what I'm saying is that when they come in, then you want them sitting with their teams.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's when you refer back to the team leaders and the different guys making team betters. The facilitator, we won't speak as much. We won't really speak much at all, except to go kind of pace the workshop where the leaders of the teams will then be the ones facilitating the topics and conversation, correct?
I think if I understand you, that's my understanding. Beth and Chris?
I think it's going to depend on the group. There are going to be some groups where you're going to be able to do some of that. There's a big range in these high schools in terms of resources, number of kids. You know, I think we're primarily in auditoriums, Chris, to the extent we know. So it should be workable, but that's going to be trainer choice, how you do that.
Yeah.
You know, if you think that these kids can help you lead, based on what you're going to take, whatever you learn from the kids in the first hour, and you're going to quickly pivot and employ them or deploy them the way you think makes sense in the second hour. Does that make sense?
It does. That's a very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Again, just the 3-day call will be really important to find out what type of kids you're talking about. All right. So the TIC assembly workshop that's going to come next. Again, this Google Hangout today, the purpose of this is to train everybody to feel comfortable. We all have our own style of doing these, but this is a 55-minute workshop tacked on to what you just did. So now we've got the whole group coming back in. I'm assuming it's going to be auditorium style. Beth, the range of numbers of kids ranges anywhere from what to what for these? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Like as small as 50, as large as 300. Actually, it's one a little bit smaller than that, maybe 35 at Squash Busters in Boston, but otherwise 50 to 300.
Yes. So make sure you know going into the workshop, whichever one you're assigned for, how big of a group it is, because that's going to make a big difference. I'm going to assume it's assembly style. So for the next 25 minutes, we're going to finish this at 1:30 my time. For the next 25 minutes, I would like to just go through this workshop quickly. All of you are already certified in the athlete assembly workshop, triple impact competitor assembly workshop. So what I want to do is just kind of give some best practices of doing this for a large group. You all know that you just had the captains and the leaders now they're on your side. So you can use them to leverage what we're doing for this big workshop. You know their names, hopefully. You can ask them to be your volunteers for examples for things. So it's really a nice setup because you're not going into a room blind with 300 kids that you don't know. So getting the whole group in, wait, am I on the right one? No, I'm sorry. I'm not screen sharing the right one. Screen sharing with myself. That's not going to help you guys. Let me pull this open. There it is. Sorry about that. All right. You guys see that? There it is. Okay, so the beginning starts off the same, edgy graphic. I know it's repetitive for the captains, but I wouldn't worry about it. This is the whole school body needs to know who's supporting them. You can show them that real quick. Where the idea is making yourself, your teammates, and the game better. This is going to be super important. I'm going to assume the group is about 200 because I think that's somewhere in the middle in an auditorium. So, you know, the moving around is a little bit difficult. That doesn't mean you can't get them up and active. Just because they can't, you know, move into 10 small groups, you can, if you can figure that out, do it. But keep them active, keep them moving. Again, I use this as call response. I told you before, I like to compete. Anything you can do to compete in a workshop, the kids are competitors. They like to do it. So really, you know, ham it up. Get your big voice on, get your big attitude on, and just have fun with it. These kids are used to people coming in to do assemblies that are there to entertain them and educate them. So we don't want to be any different. If you want to start rapping like Randy, go for it. But, you know, I think Monica probably could give you some dance moves, Randy, that could probably be a little better, but I'm not going to bust on you for that right now.
A little break dancing. I've been known to break dance.
I love it. Monica's dance move. I want to know if she can get jiggy with it.
I bet she can. I bet she can. This is another one that I liked. I stole from Randy. Agreement here, you know, just right up front, be here, be open, be honest. A lot of times in these big workshops, I assume that they all want to be here. And I assume they all are here because they want to get better. Beth, I'm assuming also that every one of these 300 athletes is also going to have a pen in the book, correct? Yes. So that's an asset. That's awesome. You don't have to worry about that. They'll be passed out. They'll have them in their lap. We want them to know that we're here to help make them better. And that's the bottom line. We want them to elevate their game. We have gotten the best of the best in the sports world to share with us what they did and how they became so successful. So we're here to do that. I tell them all, phones away, under the desk, under the seat, whatever it is, turn it off. We don't need it. If you want to take a nap, that's on you, but don't make any noise and distract people around you that are trying to make themselves better. That's what I say anyway. So first,
Kelly, one of the challenges I use there a lot is, go ahead. We're not commenting now. I'm sorry. I'll do that later with you.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I really focus on whenever I ask teams what they want to win, and that's fine. I said, but a lot of them aren't being honest with themselves and being honest with me and say, if you want to win, you want to get better. And if you're checking out of this, that's your prerogative, but then don't tell your coach you want to win. That's not something that I don't say it exactly that way, but, if you want to win, you're open to those things. And because the winning thing is always bumpy with our name and everything. So get that right out there. Hey, we want to win. And because every kid tells you at the beginning of the season, what do you want to do this year? I want to win. Okay, I got this free thing that'll make you better. You gonna do it? No. Okay, then don't say that.
Right. Exactly.
That's all.
And I always think for these big workshops too, the first question is, who are you and what are you doing here? So tell them your quick personal intro. Tell them your why. You're already introduced by the partner, so they know your credentials, your backstory, your experience, but tell them why you're here. Why is this important to you? And you all have your own connection story about that. But I know kids like to hear, speaking of a mother of 3 teenagers right now, every time they have assemblies, they come home and say, we don't even know who this guy was, Mom. So make sure that you tell them a little bit about who you are and why you're here. So again, this is set up to involve activity easily and simply for you, but you've got to make it real and you've got to make it fun for them. So who comes to mind? We're talking about triple impact competitors already. This is the title. Again, a lot of you have your own little shtick for leading into this, but the idea is impact. And the idea is that we're going to teach them how to be competitors. And again, we're using what we've gotten from the best of the best. Who comes to mind when they see this word? I tell them to shout out the first person that comes to your mind when you see this word. So I've got 300 people in the auditorium shouting out one word. And I tell them, I give them a warning. You're going to shout out one word. If extra little conversations happen, guys, I'm going to have to do more talking than you. And I don't want to do that. So let's see how we do. Ready, go. The word competitor pops up and I say, call it out. And I get 300 kids at one time yelling out some mishmash of blah, 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 LeBron James, but Steph Curry, all these people. So next question. What's one word you would use to describe that person? I always give them a minute to think, not a minute. I give them about 10 seconds to think. Think of a word you would use to describe that person. Sometimes they yell at a kid sitting next to them, which is always fun too. All right. When I tell you to, you're going to yell out that word. So, go. And they yell out that word. And you can hear them around the room. Call them out. If you want to bring a ball, I do a beach ball at assembly workshops instead of a little tiny ball, because the beach ball, they can pop it around and catch it. I might say hit it around 5 times. When you want to catch it, grab it. And, it just kind of makes it fun. I always tell them at huge assembly workshops, if you're going to volunteer to talk, please stand up. Because if you get a kid in the back, I don't always have a microphone to be able to run around the room. So I always say, if you want to volunteer in front of this group, make sure you say it loud and say it proud, because if we can't hear you, it's not going to mean anything. And I don't have a microphone. So I always say, don't stand up to volunteer if you can't make your voice heard. So a lot of times you'll get the kids that really want to volunteer. Moving right along, just to give them an idea, this movement's not just about me telling you. This is a movement that, we've got our national advisory board. They don't care who these people are. They don't care that there's a national advisory board. What they care is there's people up here they recognize. So if you are in New England, and I did not do this, I didn't change these to all New England people. But if you, Chris or Beth, if you want to throw out some New England people to put on this, I didn't edit that out. But we can add more New Englandish people to this one if we want to do that. All right. Again, same quote the leaders just heard. I still think it's a good quote to say. You can read the black, they can read the blue, whatever works. Now, here's where you get into discussion. Now, can you do a discussion with 200 people? Absolutely, you can. You just have to be in control of the behavior and control of the noise. So they don't know yet that you're going to have them discuss this with somebody else. I have them all think, who is the current or former teammate you most admire? Every time I give directions to a huge group, I let them know ahead of time that all I want you to do right now is quietly think about this. Who's a current or former teammate you most admire and why? Now, whoops, sorry. So then I tell them, okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you 1 minute to discuss this. I'm going to tell you who you're going to choose as your partner. And If not, they're going to already be looking around for a partner like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. They have to stay at their seats. So when they're at their seats, they have somebody in front of them or behind them, or they have somebody next to them. So I'm going to say the first time you're going to share with your sideline partner, which means somebody next to you on either side, right or left. Whenever you share with a partner, you give them a high five, you tell them your name, and then you have 2 minutes to share. All right. So on the count of 3, when I put the timer up, you're going to see the question. You're going to share with them who is the former teammate you most admire and why. Go. Comments, questions on that. All right. It's only 1 minute. That's okay. 1 minute's fine. Buzzer goes off in 1 minute. Buzzer sounds like that. It's pretty loud, obnoxious. If you want to change that, feel free. So then, reel it in. You guys know how to do this. I'm not going to sit here for the next, 15 minutes or so and tell you how to do a TIC workshop, but having the kids, I like to have them vote. That athlete that you just mentioned, were they more focused on making themselves better, their teammates better, or the game better? And I might say, if that person you thought of was their number one focus was on making themselves better, I want you to stand up. And they'll stand up. Okay, have a seat. If the athlete you just mentioned was really focusing on making their teammates better, stand up. And then number 3, making the game better. So most of the time when you do this, the kids that stand up the most will be for number 2. They'll say, oh yeah, that athlete went out of his way to make me better. And then you can wrap that up into, and what's really cool? We just had a lot of your captains and leaders on your team for the last hour talking about how they can lead you to make you better. So it's a good way to kind of give the athletes some credit. They just spend a little extra time. Their focus as a leader on their team is going to be to make you better, which I think is pretty good to, pump up that part of it. Stop me, flag me if you need to. Okay, so Beth and Chris, I do have a question about this. So the next part in the normal TIC workshop is on page 7, the triple impact competitor assessment. I know you're handing these out on a bookmark, but I'm assuming it's going to be like a shiny bookmark, so you don't want them to write on it, correct? Correct. I just read Beth's lips. She said correct, and Chris said correct also. So we're going to have them do this in the book, correct? All right. So they have the bookmark with them, but you can point them to page 7 in the book. And so here's the thing. I actually took out the video or the graphic that had page 7 in the book because I was thinking this was going to be something that they do. So I should put that graphic back in that has the page 7. What do you want me to do with that? Do you want me to put that graphic back in so they have the page 7? Can you unmute, Beth?
Yeah. I think that, I don't know. Again, yeah, maybe we put it in there and trainer choice, but I think what I would do is I would explain, I would say, here's the page 7, but the bookmark's got the short version. Like I want the bookmark to live there. I want their parents to see it fall out of their book, do whatever, for some of them anyway. I want them to remind themselves so that a few weeks later, they take a look at it and are they doing better? Like, to evaluate themselves today and then see where they come out down the road.
Okay.
However you guys want to manage that, but that's my idea, is that I want that as a take home, even if they never crack the book again.
Okay. So Joe, Monica, Chris, Randy, do you guys have any input on that?
I might say, like, this is page 7 in the book, but here's this, here we got the exciting version. And it's on your bookmark. You know what I mean? So that I might make that reference that they don't look exactly the same. This is the shortened version.
Okay. So the in the book, they can write on it, but then you're going to be taking this home so you can reference back to it often. Yep. And, I think that's a good way to put it, that they're going to have this to bring with them.
We have a pop-up banner that has the same thing on it. It's going to be right in front of their face the whole time.
Okay.
Sometimes I ask them, Kelly, to evaluate each other, like use that later to partner up, make a commitment to each other where they can reevaluate each other and do another self-eval. Since we're doing this at the beginning of the season, I mean, sometimes it depends if it's the beginning of the season, whether we're there or not. But ideally, if we're there at the beginning of the season, we help them with the self-assessment. And then I encourage them to pair up, make a commitment right now that you'll do this with someone on your team to look at it mid-season and then again at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. And so the bookmark is your tangible, you have to carry the book around. It's your tangible thing. Keep it in your bag. And, even sometimes at the end of practice, look at it. And you can use this kind of as a tank filler at Winner's Circle to just kind of get back on track. So tie it in that kind of way.
Yeah, I like that. And maybe at this point you can encourage, because the leaders are going to be in the room.
Right.
It's them, okay, captains, we just talked for the last hour. Maybe this is something you want to implement, bring into your team.
Yeah, or maybe we can get buy-in at the leadership meeting for it. So then we reference it at this workshop and say, your leaders that we just met with have already decided that this is something that we're going to do. And then they'll kind of nod at it. So if we could introduce it in the beginning, in the first workshop.
Yep. Love it. Love it. All right. So first one's getting into mastery. How do you characterize a successful season for you and your team? This is a discussion with a timer. They've done their sideline partner, have them do their front or back partner, high five, whatever, somebody in front of or behind them. They have 1 minute to talk about how you would characterize a successful season. What does that look like for your team? Most of the time they're sitting by teams. So they're going to be sitting with somebody near them that's on their team. 1 minute to talk about that. Segue into the discussion you just had. What were the things you were bringing up? Were you bringing up, these are the two different ways that we define winning and we define success, by the scoreboard, or are you really focusing on mastery? So just taking a look at the character, and I don't read these. Again, I don't read these to the kids. I hate to read slides to kids, but I put them up and I say, look at those. Look at the differences. The conversation you just had about what would define a successful season for you. Do you think you were more swayed on the scoreboard definition of success or the mastery definition of success? Just think about that. And then again, we go into, we know that the mastery climate, the mastery culture on a team are the teams that are most successful because they're focusing on, we call it the elm tree, the effort the players are putting in, what are they learning? And mistakes are okay because they're learning opportunities. So this is what we call the mastery definition. And again, at coaches workshops, you've got your coach might be a scoreboard focused coach. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a scoreboard focused player. So again, I encourage, even in a room of 300, I'm doing what John Carroll suggested. I want everybody to be a leader here.
So Kelly, can I ask you a question about this as we at the national level?
Please.
At what point are we going to go from mistakes are okay to mistakes are part of the game?
As soon as Joe Tarazzi revamps the PowerPoint.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
I had trouble hearing the initial question, and then I know the answer involved me, so I should ask.
Pick up, Joe.
I've always found this very difficult. When you say mistakes, you're okay. Well, there's no such thing as a mistake. And so it always comes down, and I always ask, are mess ups and errors part of the game? So the idea is that it's just part of the game. It's not they're okay. It's just part of the game.
But that's why they're okay. I think, Randy, we have to remember the audience that we're talking to. And I get
this all the time, from whether it's coaches, parents, or players have a very hard time with this.
Mm-hmm.
But when I say, are mess ups part of the game? How many people make errors? Like, okay, thereby it's part of the game.
Yeah.
Thereby it's okay. Like, I still don't get it because they're constantly being screamed at for mistakes.
Yeah. So you can change yours to say mistakes are part of the game. I'm giving you the thumbs up to be able to do that.
Wait,
Sorry.
did that entail an action item for me? I just want to make sure that I know where you are with what you're expecting of me to change something.
No,
Is Randy doing that on his?
I was teasing you.
It was a question for national.
Yeah.
Got it.
National.
Thank you.
But yes, we got it. So I agree. I mean, change it if it works better for you to do it that way, Randy. That's fine. Focus on control, what the athletes can. Again, big letters. This is an assembly. So we're putting less information on the screen. Let it flow behind you. Again, another discussion question. I think it's really important to do discussion questions with these kids. If you're finding that it's taking them too long to get focused back in, when that timer goes off, they have to have their eyes up here and look at you. If not, I think I hear a lot of noise. I'm going to mute you. You're smushing around. Okay. If it takes them too long to get back, you cannot waste time in a TIC assembly size workshop getting them refocused again. So when the timer goes off, you need to be strong in that they have to be stopped and looking up at you and ready for the next one. I once heard a trainer say that if you guys can't get focused right away, so we can go on to the next play, the next part of this workshop, I'm going to have to kill you with my PowerPoint. And I do not want to do that. So, let them know we want to make this fun. We want to make you discuss, but I need you on my team also. So again, here's another discussion. If it's seeming like the group is not getting back well quickly with you, you can make it rhetorical anytime, or you can have them write it in their book. Maybe what's the biggest mistake you've ever made on your team and how did you respond? Most of the athlete assembly workshops I've done, they don't order 300 books. So this is unique that they do have something to write on. So have them write it instead of calling it out loud, whatever you want to do. This is a way to get the kids, Randy, to think about how response to mistakes is a really important part of the game. Mistakes are part of the game, and this is why they are okay, because it's part of the game, and how you respond to it is what's going to separate the successful.
And this goes again, these kids are getting these things, but I know Is there a piece for coaches here?
Are there what? I'm sorry.
Are there a piece for coaches here at some point?
You mean, are they getting a full workshop, or are they going to be in the room?
What happens is these kids go back and they buy into it. They get all jammed up, and their coaches come back to them and they yell at them for making a mistake. And they're like, wait a second. I just went through an intensive seminar that mistakes are okay, and I'm still being screamed at for mistakes.
Right. So you know what part I work into my workshops? How do you be a mastery-focused athlete when your coaches win at all costs?
Right.
I bring that up. That's a topic I bring up at workshops because I'm not going to assume that just because their coach went to a PCA workshop, they're automatically going to change and be focused on mastery. And so that's part of leadership. That's part of the mental game, is being able to focus on how you handle mistakes in spite of the way your coach is, not because of you can't blame your coach that I can't handle mistakes because my coach, punishes me for it. That's successful athletics right there. And so I actually bring up that at every workshop I do. What if your parents are win at all costs? What if your parents are only focusing on the scoreboard?
Right.
That's no excuse to say, all right, I guess I have to be win at all costs too. So, all right, here's the toolkit. Again, they have their book. Have them open it up. It gives them something visual to look at. Everybody open up to page 30. I want to show you where this is. Fold the page over, dog ear it, whatever they want to do to look at this. But it's talking about a mistake ritual, okay? Response to mistakes and coming up with a mistake ritual. You can help them, talk through it. Does anyone raise your hand if you use a mistake ritual, which is something physical, used to trigger a mental reset. You can look on page 30. You can actually write it down. What's a mistake ritual that you do at the bottom of the page? Have them write it. What's something that works for you? Give a couple examples from different sports that you know of. Everywhere from, picking up dirt, flush it. Julie Foudy does the ice, snap out of it, whatever it is. This is where the failure is. Failure is a person, not a person. It's a result you don't like. Touching on, again, it's the same thing you touched on with the leaders, but it's important. Is your team playing the blame game when something goes on? The most successful teams don't. They look at the problem, not the person, not to attack the person. Beth's trying to talk and she's on mute again.
I muted myself. George Mumford is a Boston native. So if you don't know George Mumford's background, I can send a couple sentences out to the team. But he is local. They may not know him because he's from long, long ago, but it may still have an impact.
Yeah, so. Thank you for that. I did not know that. Awesome. I put in 2 mistake ritual videos. I put in the Flush It from Curtis Granderson, who is now playing for the Toronto Blue Jays, not the New York Mets. And I also put in the Julie Foudy. So, but if there's another one, Joe, that you know of that's more New England Central, we can put that in. I know there's a Claude Julien one that people might know him a little bit.
Yeah, they might, but he's not there anymore. So I don't know how people feel about that.
No, that's okay. He was well respected. I think it's okay. Do you disagree, Chris?
No, I was just going to say, I think Curtis Granderson is on the Brewers now. So he's he's in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think he did move again. Yeah, I think you're right.
My husband's cousin.
That's why just an inside note from National, what we're trying to do moving forward is not to identify teams, but to say things like Major League Baseball player, right, so that we don't have people chasing their tail on that quite as hard.
We're not putting the team they play for on the slide anymore. We're going to revise that.
Yeah.
You can list him as a New Balance athlete. You can list Curtis Granderson because he's that. That's local.
That works. All right. Fun activity to do is rock, paper, scissors tournament. Now, people have said, I can't do this in an auditorium with 300 kids there. I disagree. If you don't think you can handle it, don't try to handle it. However, I've done it with 300 athletes where they play rock, paper, scissors tournament with the people right next to them. The winner moves to the center aisle. So if you beat someone, you move to the center. If you lose, you move to the outskirts. So by the end, you have people moving and moving to the center, and the finale, like I don't know what you want to call it, the playoff round has everybody in the center aisle. And then you move the last 10, maybe the last 10 up to the front to do it on the stage or in the front of the room. It just keeps getting smaller and smaller. It does take a lot of behavioral classroom management skills, but it can be done. Other option for this.
Can I weigh on this for a second? Sorry, because this is an important one, I think. Beth mentioned we were different types of schools. I think for me, it's more that whether I do that is more related to the type of school and the number of students. Sure. There was a school who I will not mention, Chris, that the school isn't really good at getting their kids in the same place in the first place. Right. That you can see that the kids are going to struggle with that. And there are other schools where you could have 400 kids and the kids are used to doing this and they knock it right out of the park. So it's not just a numbers thing in my way it seems in my workshops.
Agreed. Another option for this that I've done really successfully is that every team sends up 2 representatives from your team in the front. So you don't have to do it with the whole group. And I tell them to send up a freshman because it makes that freshman feel like they're superstars. So everybody, every team, I want you to get, 2 minutes, nominate a freshman and send them up to the front of the, front of the auditorium. And then it's awesome because their team is cheering for this. You got the whole ice hockey team or football team cheering for that freshman that's in the finals of the rock, paper, scissors tournament. Anyway, the idea is filling emotional tanks, getting the hype up. Were you going to say something, Joe?
Quickly, I frequently get the question from other trainers, hey, I'm doing this type workshop this size. Should I do this? And I have to tell them, I don't know. I'm not in the room. And a lot of those decisions are really game time decisions.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think, again, anything you can do to keep them engaged does not mean 300 kids are active. You can keep 300 kids engaged without moving them around the room and making them jump up and down.
Great point, Kelly. Great point.
Thanks, Monica. Glad you got my back.
For real.
Yeah. So instead of all the graphics, all the words on the slides, here's the bottom line. Look at how pumped up you all are right now just from this rock, paper, scissors tournament, and this meant nothing. Think about it in your game. If your team had your back, like you were cheering on, Tommy here, this little freshman guy, think about how hype you were cheering him on. Imagine how Tommy would go out and perform if he had all of you guys cheering for him like you just did. So bringing E-Tank levels to performance, I like to think about that. Now, this is where front and back partner, again, an option. Finish this sentence. I don't like it when my teammates blank. Have them answer that sentence. Talking a little bit about culture, talking a little bit about a lot of the stuff that people don't like are the tank drainers. Everything that they're mentioning are tank drainers. They can have a minute to talk about this. What do you not like when your teammates do? Beep. And then whatever that was that you just shared with your front or back or sideline partner, whatever you want to say, let's reframe it. Whatever that thing you just took, I like it when my teammates, because, and this is a quote I use a lot at workshops, you cannot do a don't. We want our teams to do. So take whatever you just, and take an example from somebody who wants to share. Give them an example of what they're talking about. So somebody might say, I don't like it when my teammates, give me an answer, somebody.
Yell at me.
Yell at me, right. Let's turn it. So Monica, make yelling at you as a tank drainer. So how would you finish this sentence using the example of yelling at me? I like it when my teammates do what instead?
Yell for me, cheer for me.
I like it. Instead of yell at me, yell for me. I love that. So we're turning it into expectations and positives that are going to start to create a culture on your team. So give them another, minute to do that. Or have them write it. I like it even better. Have them write it in the book. You just discussed what you don't like it when your teammates do. I want everybody to write the sentence, front cover of the book. I like it when my teammates, boom, there it is. Leaders, when you go back to your own team, I like to give the leaders at every workshop I do a challenge for when they go back. Your next team meeting, I want everybody to share this on your team. Okay, this is going to be the agenda for your next team meeting. Give them a challenge. Talk about this. This is going to create the culture on your team. So again, all these things, guys, all the things they just said, I don't like it when my teammates, they're probably up on this screen right now of draining their tanks. Okay, we want to flip that to tank fillers. Do I read every one of these? Nope. But I have them up on the screen for them to see them. All right, keep going. Toolkit. Again, the leaders have already seen this. And you can say that, hey, we just talked to the leaders on your team about this, what they can do to help you guys fill the tanks on your team. What works for you? Take a look on 1551. Take a second, read over those. Okay, what works best for you? What are some things that are already done on your team? Maybe your coach made sure that everybody knows everybody's name. Maybe you do a check-in while you do warm-up. Maybe you already have a mistake ritual. So these are, again, use this as a teaching tool. Don't use it as a lecture because they're not going to remember it. Use it as a way for them to reflect on their own team, their own situation, and what works for them. And they have the books, which is great. All right, Brad Stevens, I'm going to check and see. This might not be the right video. Let's see.
When I had guys that were being evaluated by the NBA when I was coaching in college.
So I'm going to videos because these aren't quite where I wanted. I just the wrong one. PowerPoint that we get out. I took the Brad, but exactly the way I wanted. So again, that he recruited that could but he was the best. Make this shorter of that. All right, let's see. Okay, so how much is too much? We don't want every team to be ridiculously positive all the time. We want, there's got to be some criticism in there somewhere. What's the ratio? Just sharing this with the kids. Don't tell them to give 5-to-1 ratios, but again, sharing them that the research has shown 5 times more back to performance, link it back to success, letting them see that this is hard to do. But all of those things on page 50 and 51, all those tank fillers will raise up that ratio for you. So if you find your team's not performing well, look back at how you guys treat each other. Try to fill people and see if it's your performance. All right, last one, hitting it home, honoring the game. There's a couple different videos for this. There's a Jack Sock one. There's also a soccer one. I think it's one of the German soccer players that was tripped on a penalty kick. Sorry, Randy, if my sound's going in and out. It was tripped on a penalty kick. You choose which one you like. I like this Jack Sock video, but it's a little hard to hear what's going on. So if any of you have a better example of honoring the game and you want to put that in there, let me know. Have you? All right, I'll show you.
Kelly, your audio is cutting in and out for me. I think it's for others too, based on expressions, just so you know. Monica's nodding.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to finish this up then. So set up the serve comes over. You can't hear me?
But it's every third word, Kel.
Yikes. Not sure why that's happening. Hold on. Hold on. I'll do it this way. All right. Can you hear me now?
That's better for me so far. Yes.
Yep. Okay. We'll just finish it up like this. But anyway, set up this video a little bit, but it's a really good example of honoring the game because the ball was served, the official calls it fault, out, and the opponent says, actually it was in, you might want to challenge that. So I just like to use this as a video. I mean, you can see the shock on the server's face, like, what the heck? You just were given a point and you're just taking it back. How many of you would do that in a game? This is a game where there's a lot of money on the line and the opponent, Jack Sock, says, you know what, I'm going to be honest here because that ball really was in. So I just like to use this as a quick video to give an example of honoring the game. Let me keep going. So the last one, roots of honoring the game. This is huge, huge assembly workshop style. So the interaction for this is a little bit different, but talking about, you know, when adversity happens, these are the 5 areas. And this is where I also use the you can't do a don't. These are expectations that we have for our teams, the highest level of respect for the rules, the officials, the opponents, the teammates, and yourself. What you choose to do with this part is up to you. I don't usually do an activity too much with the big groups. It's also probably going to be getting towards the end of the workshop, but this is really important. This takes sportsmanship to the other level, the next level, because we're giving the kids expectations of how we want them to treat other teammates and treat every aspect of the game. So again, the last part is a scenario. Read the crowd. I put in trash talking. There's a lot of other honoring the game scenarios. If this doesn't seem appropriate for your school or the team you're talking to, you can switch it. You can change it. But we want some kind of a scenario about honoring the game. There's also other scenarios on challenging officials. Officials make a horrible call. That's from a coach workshop, but that can apply to athletes as well. How do you handle it when an official makes a terrible call against your team? Whatever it is, here's the toolkit. Here's how they can handle it. You can have them talk again. If it seems like a good group, have them talk, have them discuss. Bring up a couple people in the front of the room. If it's a big workshop, that's always fun too. When you get a couple volunteers to come up in the front of the room and you have them each give their answer. But again, this is a toolkit for them. Show them. Page 67, there's a lot of tools in here that we didn't mention today, talking about visualization, the mental game, the self-control routine, being proactive and all these things. This is what the higher level coaches are looking for. This is emotional maturity in your athletes. And I use that word. And I tell them that everybody can react negatively when something negative happens. Who can react positively when something negative happens? Those are the kind of kids we want on our teams. I'm going to mute you again, Joe. Okay, Joe's muted. All right, so we are finishing it out. This is where the Hollywood music, I'm going to say like the padding comes in at the end of the movie here. We've got Herm Edwards. The game is sacred. You can read the quote, have them read the quote. But the idea for these athletes is to realize that their 4 years here is going to end, but what they're leaving behind is a legacy. And I always like to tell the kids in the beginning of the workshop, when I had to think of an athlete that you admired, that was a current or former teammate, I would like to come back in 4 years and have all the athletes on your team say your name. So think about that legacy you're leaving behind. And that's kind of the broad, big picture. What are you leaving behind? How do you want to be remembered as an athlete? I have them write it in the book, just like I do for the coaches. What do you want to be known for when you leave this school and you go on to after you graduate? Social media. This is just a quick, this is probably linking this to honoring the game. We're not going to get too much into hazing. We're not going to get into too much into anything else, but the kids this is linking to the legacy piece. They are leaving a legacy behind. Your digital footprint is a huge legacy you're leaving behind. Are you using it responsibly? So here is the video. Most of you have seen this from Pat Fitzgerald, just talking about college recruiting in terms of social media, which I think is a big wake-up call for a lot of these kids. So I'm not going to play that right now, but how will they be remembered? So the part of the legacy piece is with the social media footprint they're leaving, is with how they're treating other people, how they're being respectful of coaches. This is all the honoring the game part. But seeing them, letting them think about how they are going to be remembered by all these different people. And this is the wrap up of the workshop. Now you're all officially triple impact competitors. We're going to strive to make yourself better, your teammates better, and the game better. This is a great resource page for the athletes. If you want to have them now take out their phones and put this in, sometimes I've had them do that, and they like that because they can actually see it pop up. If you're having issues with a coach, issues with a player, you just want to hear what, Steph Curry thinks about this, or LeBron James, or, whatever athlete you want to come up with.
Gordon Hayward, Kyrie Irving. Oh, we don't have them on there.
There you go. Pull out some New England names. I love it. And then the evaluation that they're going to be doing, Beth and Chris, is not the evaluation in the back of the book, correct?
It's the same one, but it's going to be greatly reduced.
So we don't do the evaluation in the back of the book for PCA.
Yeah, we're not going to have them fill. They're going to get a separate piece of paper instead of the back of the book page, because I don't want to get into ethnicity and gender and no offense, we're not going to have them evaluate all of you, as I really only need to report back on those 2 questions, which is content, poor to excellent, and I intend to use the workshop ideas. I would say, I love finishing with a legacy pace. I would encourage people to consider ending with, people either shouting out or whatever format you want to use, writing in the book what they intend to use, because then when they answer the survey question, they're going to go, yeah, I'm going to use that.
Yep. I love it. So you can even do that when you get to this part. When you
yes,
put this
right
up,
there.
What will you use from, what do you remember from the Elm Tree of Mastery? What will you use from Filling the Emotional Tank? And what will you, that's great. So have them write it in the book so that they can just write on their evaluations. I like that.
Yeah. And there's a couple of these schools where I think most of them, the books will be fine. But if you decide based on your read of the audience that having these kids go into the book's not going to help you, I totally understand. So.
Okay. All right, great. And then
could I ask for one quick thing? And maybe we've done this, particularly Kelly and Beth, but probably involves me as well. There are a lot of things we've said that say we want to make sure that this is in every one of these. Could we make a checklist of those for all the people conducting these?
Yeah.
I know, Beth, that's something you've expressed as important to you in the impact of this. So I just want to make sure that we're, as direct about that as we can be.
Sure.
So is that something that Beth can do, or Joe, are you going to work with Beth to get that together?
I can do a first draft, and then you can put it in a format that makes sense.
Okay.
Randy showed us a version that he had of something before. I'd love to see that if that exists electronically.
That's just what we put in all the trainer backpacks when we first become certified trainers. That's sort of a checklist for all the trainers.
And I mean specifically for these, Beth, because, you know, I know you've mentioned saying that, you know, maybe certain activities want to be in every workshop, or, you know, something like what you just said, end with something to encourage what they're going to do, that are really unique to this. And I'd like to make sure, and I would like to be a short list, you know, of the real hardcore necessities, so that we can all be on the same page. I don't want you disappointed, Beth, saying, well, I thought this was going to happen in this workshop, you know, because we do balance this all the time, where we have our own personal voice in the workshop, and then they have things that we need as, you know, as an organization.
Oh yeah, I'm just trying to get you all good grades on this so we can get it back to Ecomedia. But if there's an electronic version of that trainer checklist existing, if you send that to me, then I can add in the 3 or 4 little things, which is really just, you know, make sure we collect the survey, or that I ask them to do the survey, because you don't want someone else to have to pop up and say, oh, now do a survey. Ask them to do the survey, and, you know, this points we just made, we'll make that, it'll be super short, because I think we have a good team here and people get it, but there's only very limited stuff that we really are requiring here.
Okay. And then giving credit at the end of the workshop, thanking Chevrolet and Ecomedia would be great. All right, and that's all. I mean, that's all I have. This is the last slide. So if you guys have any other questions, Joe, I'm going to be working with you, I assume, to get the final PowerPoints ready.
Yep.
On the videos and everything sharp. I also
100%.
I also don't have, like, in the folder, I don't have the PC version and the Mac version, so I'm going to rely on you to help with that.
I'll set those up. Once we find it's an order of operations kind of thing. Once we finalize the slides, then I break them down into the 2 versions and separate out the videos. Perfect. So yeah, that's on me. I have a couple notes already from this, and I've already reached out to Beth and a couple other people about things that we'll add or offer as options in these workshops.
All right. Thank you very much, Monica and Randy. I really appreciate you guys being on. This was longer than we probably expected, but I think this was great. And hopefully any of the other trainers that are going to be watching this, please send comments. If you want, the workshops are going to be posted, and Sonia is going to be contacting you to do workshops. But if you are available to do them, definitely put in the request in the workshop manager system. And then Sonia can, if you're one of the Team Chevy people, she can know that you're available on that date. But the workshops are not all scheduled yet. So am I correct in that, Chris?
Correct. We still have a bunch more coming for November and early December.
So you still want the trainers to apply for them so that you know they're available?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys.
Just huge thanks and congratulations to Beth and Chris for setting this up. This is such a big win in New England. I'm just so proud to be part of it, and we're really lucky. I worked with this same initiative in Milwaukee. It's very powerful. So great job, guys.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. And your good work.
All right. Take care.
Peace out, homies.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.